Welcome, listeners, to our podcast. We are listening, the space where we bridge the gaps between wellness seekers and wellness providers. I'm Pulkit Garg, your guide in this journey of self discovery and healing. And today we have with us a yoga trainer, Sonali Kalgaonkar, who has been teaching and imparting knowledge of yoga for 12 plus years. Welcome, Sonali.
Thank you, Pulkit. Very much happy to be here on the podcast and speak about my favorite subject.
We are glad to have you here, Sonali. And Sonali, before we dive into this really interesting topic of breathing today, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and share your healing journey with us?
Yes, like Pulkit said, my name is Sonali Kalgaonkar. I am the founder of Golden Earth Journeys in Yoga, through which we empower people to learn more for themselves and practice different workshops and retreats all through the year, enable us to do this. In short, my healing journey started when I moved to a new job when I lived in Bangalore, which led to a ill health scenario where I was not able to even take in water. It turned out to be a bronchital attack, and it was difficult because even the medicines that were provided, the allopathic medicines, were really not helping me. They made me feel tired and uneasy. So I came to a point where I just gave up on the medicines and I started with working with my breath, practicing every day at 5 in the morning. And in about 3 months, I was able to, actually witness and live the miracle of becoming more healthy and letting this any kind of respiratory issues, away from me. It's been now many years, over 16 years, and I have not faced this problem ever after that. So that's where my journey started. That healing led me to study deeply and then, of course, spread the knowledge ahead.
That's so true, Sonali, that breathing can heal, you know, and the essence of this healing, I believe, stays with us. That every breath is really essential for our life. Even if we miss out about, one single breath, our life is in question. And breath is a very fundamental aspect of our life. And as per a recent study, I found out that we take around 20,000 breaths per day. A normal individual takes around 20,000 breaths per day. Why don't you help us
Right.
understand the science of, behind these 20,000 breaths per day to our listeners?
Simply breaking it down, Pulkit, it comes to about 12 to 20 breaths per minute that an average human being is taking every single day, and which is where when you look at it in 24 hours, you get around 20,000, the number. Now, the key here is, if you're saying 12 to 20 is average, for some people it will be 12, some people it will be 20. However, it's not just the number of breaths per minute, but it is also the volume of your breath, or rather, how much breath you're taking in. With each breath that you take in, that makes a difference to the quality of your breathing and therefore the quality of your health and well being.
And Sunny, how can we as an individual, harness the full potential of breath? How can we increase that volume?
Okay, so very important is, Pulkit, it's not difficult at all to do this. First thing is to understand each one of us can do it. We just need to have some time kept aside to actually focus on this practice through the day. Before you know how to do it yourself, it's better to, approach a good teacher and learn from them, and then you continue it on your own. So, the important thing is to understand that we need to breathe right. It's not just the rate of breathing or the volume of breathing. So, your rate of breathing and the volume of breathing will be right if you're breathing correctly. So, today there are many cases of people over breathing rather than breathing right. Or there are people who are not breathing correctly, in the sense that it's a shallow breath that you take because you are stressed out, you're anxious, or pressurized with something. So correcting these things and then consistently practicing with mindfulness is how you can, actually harness the power of your breath.
I totally relate with that, Sonali, that often one of my yoga teachers told me that when I was having headaches, to try alternative nostril breathing. So if one of my nostril is having, more power of breath, or the more air is coming out from one nostril, try to balance the air in both the nostrils, and it really worked wonders for me, helping me ease out
Mm.
my headache. So,
Mm.
can you help our listeners understand that how just this simple process of breathing, which happens on its own unconsciously, we don't have to put in too much efforts. Like even when we are
Mm.
walking, we put in efforts. When we are talking, we put in effort. But breathing
Mm.
is something that happens on its own. It's programmed in our body to happen. How does it,
Correct.
it's connected with different systems of our body?
Okay, so let's say the breath is our fundamental unit. So when you
Hmm.
inhale, when you take an inhalation, you are inhaling oxygen. You're inhaling a lot of other atmospheric gases along with oxygen. And of course, the life force, which in Sanskrit or in yogic concept, we call it as prana. So it's the prana which energizes our whole body. But the prana cannot work without the physiological aspect of breathing. Now,
Hmm.
how this is connected: when you breathe in, the breath goes into your lungs, from the lungs into your blood, moves through the blood. Blood is how our oxygen is transported to every cell in our body. And on the return, all the excess carbon dioxide or gases or toxins that the body doesn't require get thrown out via our exhalation. So, in this whole process, there is a lot of communication that is going back and forth between the heart and the lungs, the the air sacs or the alveoli in our lungs with the capillaries of in the blood, and the transportation of that oxygen throughout our body. So, if a breath is of a good quality, what we inhale, the air is good quality, then we get really, nutrient rich oxygen, converting that blood into nutrient rich nutrition for the entire body. And
Hmm.
that's how it is connected to every system. So your circulatory system, your metabolism, your autonomic nervous system, everything is energized with this one single breath. So this is just a small gist of how the breath is, connected to all our systems. There's a lot bigger science behind that, and we can discuss it at depth, but not at the moment.
So I would be correct in saying that our breath is providing energy and the energy source for everything that happens in our body. Am I right in saying
Yes,
that?
yes, absolutely.
And Sonali, you mentioned that the our complete life is between the first breath we take and the last breath we take. And
Yes, the last
at
exhale we
yeah, the last exhale
he
that we do.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So, the every stage of our life, the every age duration we get into, breath would
Hmm.
have a different role to play as a student, or it might have different benefits for us. When we enter into our career, it might have different benefits for us. And once we reach to the topmost, rung of our ladder, corporate ladder, it might have different benefits for us. Can you shed some light on how, at these different, stages of our life, we can leverage the power of breath to our benefit?
So see, in very simple terms, I think it's about building quiet time into our daily life. So, as whether you're a student or whether you have just started working or you are a leader in a big company, I think building quiet time into your life is what is going to, help you to consistently focus on the quality of your breathing, and therefore the quality of your health and well-being and productivity.
Can we have one tip for each, of our listeners from different age groups listening to us, as a student, as the starting of a career, and as a leader? what type of breathing, or how can, what practice can they inculcate in their daily schedule for getting the benefits?
So let's put it like this. Instead of saying, at each phase in their life whether they can do something differently, I think what happens is whatever phase of life we are in, the emotional aspects of our life and the situations in our life are always going to be very different. So one
Hmm.
important thing all of them can do at any point of time, like in whatever phase of life you are in, is to quietly sit down, keep your spine straight, head, neck, spine in one line, and just when you're breathing, you focus on counting. So you inhale, say for 4 counts, and then you exhale for 4 counts. This is the basic practice that they can do. It is called as box breathing, and many teachers say that. In pranayama or in yoga, we say it's a samavritti pranayam. So we are working with our breath with equal measure. So your inhalation, exhalation is equal. This is the first step that you can do.
Okay.
Once maybe you take about 5 breaths, 10 breaths, settle down in the practice, and then you can start giving a small pause between each transition. Inhaling, pause, exhaling, then pause, and then continue this. So rather than saying, if you're a student, can you do this? If you are a housewife, can you do this? If you're a leader, can you do this? I think this holds true for everyone. This is a mini practice you can do anywhere. It's portable. You can take it anywhere you go. You don't need any props for it. You just need yourself and your breath.
Amazing. And I guess they don't need too much of a time as well. It's not going to take more than 5-10 minutes.
Exactly, exactly. Even if you do it for 1 minute, it is going to give you a effect, and then you can go on from there. So to start small, you start with 1 minute. Even 1 minute is difficult for many people.
I guess then there's no more excuse for our listeners not to practice the art of breathing.
Absolutely. I think that's the best thing about breath. It's involuntary, but we have a power over it by using that power consciously and voluntarily.
So, Sonali, in order to use that power consciously, I believe it's really imperative and important to understand the physiology of, breathing. Can you, elaborate a bit on that?
Yes. So the first, I think, physiology, I'll try to say it in short. First important thing is your posture. Your
Okay.
posture is very important because the way your entire respiratory system works, if your posture is correct, you allow the right breathing to happen. So obviously you have the, where does it start? Right from our nose and going it up to our lungs. This is the entire respiratory system. So the trachea, the connected lungs, we've got two lungs, left and right side. In short, if I have to explain about the physiology of our respiratory system, it's like an inverted tree. So like the tree, the tree outside, which has a trunk and then bigger branches and then more sub branches and then leaves. Exactly the opposite is what happens in our body. It's an inverted tree. So your windpipe, the trachea is connected to the lungs, and inside you have all these, smaller branches, bronchi, and then all of these come down into leaves, like subdivisions. And you can say the leaves of a tree are like the air sacs that we have in our lungs. So it's like, if I were, we have millions of air sacs in our lungs, and especially the lower side of our lungs. So therefore, breathing into the lowest is very important to, completely give the breath or the oxygen or all the nitric oxide and all those gases that go in with our breath a chance to be nicely filtered and go in as nutrition to the blood. They have to reach these air sacs, these alveoli, which are in the lower part of the lungs. And therefore, breathing slow, breathing deep is the key. So the that's the short physiology, and you can't do that if you're all the time huddled over a computer or with your head neck down and contracting your chest. Your chest has to be open. You have to sit properly or stand properly. The weight of the body should be in the center, not always leaning to one or the other direction.
Got it. So, Sonali, now since we understand the physiology of breathing and majorly the science behind it, we have talked about how just a simple practice of conscious breathing can help us get better mental clarity and bring in focus. Can you help us understand a bit about? So, there are a lot of people who breathe through their mouths. They don't use the nose as such. They don't use nostril breathing very actively, but they breathe through their mouth. Can you help us understand what exactly mouth breathing is and what are its implications on our health?
Mouth breathing is the concept which is not allowing you to reach your highest health potential. Because of mouth breathing, one, you're over breathing. Two, there is no filter from your mouth to the lungs. So, a lot of impurities you're taking in without, knowing how to reach the lungs in the filtered form. So if you do nostril breathing, all this is happening. So for example, when you're breathing from your nose, there's a mucous membrane that warms up the air, that filters the air. So this warming up of the air means it doesn't affect any of your internal organs harshly. So if you're in any place where your air is too warm or too cold and your mouth breathing, it's not helping you. A lot of people are fine during the day, but they sleep with open mouth. That's a very critical problem that brings in a lot of health issues with it. So I think mouth breathing is the one thing that if you can stop, you will 50-60% of your health issues that you may be currently facing will disappear almost immediately. So a long-term implication of breathing in your mouth is you lose energy, you feel fatigued very fast, you call for health issues, you actually call for illness. Your breathing becomes shallower, and that means the right amount of oxygen, fresh oxygen is not reaching the right place. The quality of your blood therefore becomes a little impure, because if continuously you're not able to give enough pure oxygen to the blood, then you're not nourishing the body and the cells. So the impure blood or impurities in the blood are not going out of your body. So 70% of your toxins are exhaled out when you breathe out, and that through your nose.
So listeners, I hope you get it that we all need to breathe through our nose now. We need to avoid mouth breathing. And thanks a lot, Sonali, for helping our listeners understand not just the science of breathing, but also the physiology of breathing and how can breathing really benefit us. Listeners, stay tuned. We have 2 more episodes coming up with Sonali. And in the next episode, we're going to focus on different methods of respiration and also touch upon how yogic breathing and different forms of breathing can, really help us combat stress and various other issues. Thanks a lot, Sonali, for this wonderful episode.
Thank you, Pulkit. Thank you, listeners.